What's up, friends, and welcome back to my channel. In a world of shiny smart rings and high-tech sport watches comes a health tracker that looks like it's straight out of the 90s. This is the Biostrap, a simple black wristband that doesn't tell the time, doesn't take calls, and certainly won't pay for your cup of coffee. But what it lacks in aesthetics, it does make up for in some really interesting sleep and health metrics. Now, it's certainly not perfect and probably won't be everyone's cup of tea, but I do think there is a strong case to be made for the Biostrap as a great all-in-one health tracker that really goes toe-to-toe with some of the big players in the space. I've been testing it out for the past month alongside my Fitbit, Oura Ring, Dreem 2, and Polar H10 chest strap. I'll explain how it works and do some side-by-side comparisons with my data, highlight the pros and the cons, and share my honest thoughts on who the Biostrap is for and whether it's actually worth the price. But first, if you're new here, welcome. My mission is to help you achieve success without sacrificing your health or happiness. I do product reviews weekly, so if you're into this, click that subscribe button and join the Type A tribe. And before we get started, just a quick congrats to Champlin Cairo for being the winner of my True Dark Glasses giveaway. Thank you to everyone who entered, and rest assured there will be plenty of more giveaways down the line, so make sure to stay tuned here each week. So let's kick things off with a quick overview of how the Biostrap actually works. And as you'll see here, this is the Biostrap Evo Move Set, which comes with a wristband, shoe pod, and a charging dock. And if I'm being totally honest, I only used a shoe pod once because A, I wanted to just see how well the wristband worked on its own, and B, I totally forgot about it. Now, if I were a serious athlete, I probably would have just invested in their whole active set, which includes a heart rate monitor, but I'm not. And so what I really wanted to test for was how well equipped the Biostrap is on its own at tracking things like movement, recovery, and of course, sleep. And I'll get to all of my data and stats in just a sec, but first let's just quickly touch on the device's biosensors. This wristband comes with a built-in accelerometer and gyroscope for movement, along with red and infrared light PPG sensors to measure pulse and SpO2. Now, I've touched on the main differences between red and green PPG sensors in the past, and I still stand by the belief that red PPG sensors tend to be a little bit more accurate because they can actually penetrate deeper into the tissue than green ones. But of course, if you want to learn a little bit more about it yourself, I've included some studies in the show notes below, which you can go and check out. So back to the biosensors. And I've got to say, I was pretty impressed by the prolific amount of health data and stats you get from such a small device. Everything from respiratory rate to HRV, sleep stages to blood oxygen levels, and even things I've never measured before with fitness, like velocity, reps, and cadence. And at any point, you can also record a quick biometrics report on yourself, which gives you a real-time snapshot of things like your HRV, SpO2, heart rate, and even artery age. It takes about 2 minutes to do the test, and then you get the full report emailed straight to you. Now, maybe an overkill for the average user, but super great for data nerds like me, and probably useful for people looking to monitor certain stats for health reasons. Which leads me to my own health stats and the unique reporting features you get with the device and the app. As I mentioned earlier, I took the month to really put this Biostrap through the ringer, testing it alongside 4 of my other sleep and fitness trackers to really see how the data compared. For sleep, I tested it against the Oura Ring and my Dreem 2, and I made sure to wear both the Biostrap and Oura Ring on the same hand just for consistency purposes. And on the fitness front, I used my Polar H10 chest strap, the Fitbit Sense, and my Oura Ring to see how well the Biostrap did at just capturing my basic metrics. So let's start with sleep, and these are the metrics in which all 3 sleep devices were pretty much aligned. Total sleep time, lowest heart rate, average heart rate, and average respiratory rate. So definitely not a bad start, but things do get a bit murky when it comes to sleep cycles. So unfortunately, the Biostrap doesn't actually separate REM and deep sleep like the other 2 devices do. Instead, they only list out 3 stages, including awake, light, and deep, making it really hard to do a fair comparison of accuracy here. Now, that being said, I'd say the only metric kind of worth comparing here is light sleep. And so when looking back at my data from all 3 trackers, the Biostrap and the Dreem 2 were actually closest on light sleep, which I'd say is pretty significant considering that the Dreem 2 is somewhat considered to be more accurate than the Oura Ring. Moving on to resting heart rate and HRV, which are two stats that I monitor pretty closely for my health. Now, the Biostrap undershot my resting heart rate by 8 points, but then overshot my HRV by 8 points compared to the Oura Ring in the same exact time period. So which one is right? Well, on their website, the Biostrap claims their device to be highly accurate due to the clinical quality PPG sensors that are capturing 2,000 heartbeats every 24 hours and analyzing each pulse wave for 29 different parameters. Now, on the flip side, Oura considers their ring to be more accurate, and on their website, they cite validation studies showing the ring's heart rate measurements to be 99.9% accurate when compared to an electrocardiogram. I wish I could say definitively that one of them is more accurate than the other, but I just don't know. They're probably both wrong to some degree. But rather than lose sleep over the minutia, I'd say you're better off just getting a baseline with any of these trackers and then paying attention to your trends and seeing if anything changes over time. That's where I find the most value in these devices, because when it comes to accuracy, well, none of them are perfect. And before we close out on sleep, I think it's worth mentioning a couple of extra features you get with the Biostrap, including SpO2 tracking and a thing called sleep accounting, which actually takes into account your circadian score and your total sleep debt from the previous nights. Moving on to fitness. And as a quick disclaimer, I am planning to redo this experiment with both my Biostrap and Fitbit Sense on the same arm because, as you'll quickly see, my numbers were a little all over the place. And yes, I promise to use that shoe counter step thing in my next experiment too. But based on the month's worth of data I have on hand, the Biostrap actually overestimated my total step counts by an average of 1,700 per day compared to the Fitbit, and then underestimated my total step counts by 3,300 steps compared to the Oura Ring. Now, the Biostrap and the Fitbit were much closer in terms of total miles walked, but both of them were way under by about 5 miles from the Oura Ring counts. And then when it comes to total calories burned, well, the Biostrap isn't measuring your active heart rate. And so therefore my total counts were off by a significant amount. On average, the Biostrap was showing me I burned 500 less calories than I did with both the Fitbit and the Oura Ring. Now, taking all of these factors into account, the good news is that some of these things can be course corrected by using their pedometer and then pairing the Biostrap with a heart rate monitor like the Polar Chest Strap to get more accurate heart rate measurements. But at the end of the day, that's just a lot of extra legwork, and I'm not entirely sure that would be sustainable for me long term. Which brings me to the pros and cons of this device and who I think the Biostrap is really intended for. So on the plus side, I think the Biostrap does a really good job at data presentation and analysis. You can get all the basic stats you need from just a quick glance on the home screen, or you can dive even further into hour-by-hour metrics and diagnostic charts by clicking on any of their featured tiles. I also like that they've included a sleep accountability section with full bedtime recommendations based on your sleep debt from previous nights. And that's something I haven't really seen in any other trackers before. Another plus for this device, for some people, will be its low profile. I realize it's certainly not sexy, but the Biostrap is ultra durable, and it's probably not going to degrade over time because it's got one thick rubber outer shell, making it a great option for weightlifters or people looking for an alternative to smart rings or wristwatches. They also have an airplane mode option, a 30-day return policy, and just one flat fee for the device with no added membership costs. Now, moving on to the cons, and we have to start with battery life. This thing does not hold a charge for very long. We're talking 2 to 3 days max. And so this is really not a lot when compared to some other competitive trackers on the market that get up to 7 days. And on top of that, you have to also remember to open up the Biostrap app and sync your device every single day, or it won't record your sleep data. And trust me, I found out the hard way when I went 4 days without checking and then realized I lost all that hard-earned sleep data as a result. And speaking of sleep, definitely disappointed they didn't include REM scores or your body temperature, and I still can't figure out why. I also found it strange that the Biostrap will auto-record your sleep, but not auto-record your workouts. And then because there's no active heart rate feature, definitely facing some limitations when it comes to analyzing your workouts and really getting accurate measurements when it comes to things like calories burned. And so coming back full circle to the beginning of this video, and I said the Biostrap definitely had value, but probably wouldn't be everyone's cup of tea. And hopefully now you can understand why. It's got some really great features and some not so great features. And so that really means it's gonna come down to your personal preference and price. At the end of the day, there is a good reason I wear multiple tracking devices. And no, it's not to fill up arm space. It's because I have yet to find one single device that gives me all the data and accuracy that I'm looking for in one unified place. So that being said, who do I think the Biostrap is meant for? And I would say it would probably be a really great fit for someone looking for a low profile device with sleep and fitness tracking that's sort of like a middle ground between the Oura Ring and the Whoop strap. So that's my full take on the Biostrap, and I'd love to hear from you guys on the next tracker I should try out, because I am always on the hunt. So feel free to leave a comment below or hit me up on my DM at KatieTypeA. And thank you guys so much for watching. If you learned something, if you like this video, please make sure to give it a big thumbs up. And if you're not already subscribed, make sure to click that subscribe button. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so you get notified each week when I drop a new video. And until then, I can't wait to catch you on the next one.